like to talk about catallaxy and comparative advantage and give you a numerical example, right? So I want to complement what Matthew started yesterday with comparative advantage. But I would like to start talking about in the catallaxy, right? So catallaxy is a market order characterized by exchange, right? Order that arises via exchange. What is the fundamental economic or what is the fundamental human problem that we have? Is that our wants and our needs and our desires, right, clashes with the finite resources that we have. We always want more, right? And wanting more, non-satiation, is innate to human beings. It's not like something we decide to be, we say, oh, I just want more. It's just, you cannot say, I don't want more. So non-satiation is innate to human beings. We're never content. It's a pessimistic view of the Austrian School of Economists, right? Or we want more because we want to change our state of affairs. We want to go from one state to a better state. That would be a Rothbardian, more optimistic view of non-satiation. But nevertheless, human beings act, we cannot not act. Therefore, that means we can never be satiated. We can never say, I'm content, this is it, I want to stop here. No, the next day you have to wake up, you have to take action, and every action is purposeful. You're improving your state that you're in. Improvement could be making more money, it could be self-flagellation, it could be suicide, it could be anything that you subjectively determine that satisfies your desired ends. So human beings are non-satiated, okay? The infinite desires is not some psychological phenomena, it's actually innate human phenomena, it's biological because we have to act, okay? So when there is infinite desires, but nevertheless there are finite resources, and the most important finite resource is, what's the most important finite resource? Time, okay? Literally, besides time, I don't think anything is finite, it's just because the resources, we can, human beings, given our ingenuity, we can discover more resources, right? Saifuddin Amos says we barely scratched the surface of Earth when it comes to the natural resources. We have more oil today than we thought we had. We have more natural resources. The universe is ours, okay, and it's infinite. So the resources are out there, but the most fundamental finite resource is time. We can't be doing two things at the same time. If I'm picking apples, I can't be picking oranges, right? So this is the external state of affairs that we live under, and our infinite desires is a human phenomenon. Okay, it's an essentialist. It's not even nomological. It's an essentialist phenomenon because of the axiom of action. So the axiom of action leads to this fundamental economic problem. So this problem is praxeological. Okay, it's praxeological. That means human beings act. It is inherent in the axiom of action. It is a direct implication of the axiom of action, right? So action occurs obviously in a world of scarcity. So this is the fundamental economic problem that we have. So how do we satisfy our wants and needs in the catallaxy? So how can I get out of, what is the best way, right, to solve this problem? To bring about a balance between my infinite desires, right, with finite resources. There are two ways. We can either enter society, right, and exchange, or we can live in a state of autarky, in isolation. You can self-sufficiency, okay? Before I talk about that, I would like to remind you, we talked about this yesterday, that the economy, the world economy, right, comes from a Greek word. It means a household, a person who manages household. So it's like more at the micro household level, family level, tribe level, where we all have the same congruent, similar taste and preferences and the value system and culture, right? That's what economy is. On the other hand, Hayek popularized the word catallaxy. He said, well, our actions in a society where the division of labor is getting deeper and deeper, most of our actions is not at the economy level, it's not at the household level, right? It's not at the household level, it's at the market level, at the larger market level. So he calls this larger market level outside our household catallaxy. So he defines a market in which harmony is achieved by the interaction of diverse and disparate goals of market participants, right? So catallax is the equilibrium, is a spontaneous order that is achieved outside of your household in an environment where you don't know who your trading partner is. It could be your enemy, it could be sometimes that you don't like, but nevertheless in the catallaxy, given our fundamental economic problem, how harmony is achieved. So the question again remains, how do we satisfy our wants and needs in the catallaxy, right? Not in the economy, but in the catallaxy. How can I get the most out of an exchange society? We can be economically self-sufficient, that's called autarkic. If you live in an autarky, life will be miserable because you can't produce all the things that you desire. You can spend the rest of your life trying to produce a computer, right, or a cell phone, or an airplane. You won't be able to achieve it. You can't even produce your own shoes, your own clothing. So it's a horrible state of affairs. Or we can do what? Specialize and trade with others, leading to economic interdependence. So we enter society motivated by our own self-interest, right, to deal with the problems, to deal with the fundamental economic problem where our desires are finite and our resources are limited, okay? So that dichotomy between our desires and the resources leads us to enter society. So the individual enters society to benefit himself or herself, to achieve their goals. So there are two types when we enter society, obviously in the state of nature that we're living under in the external environment. We could have a political exchange environment. What is political exchange? It's coercive. The state that we live in is coercive. It's based on conquest. It's contingent upon redistribution, which I call it a legalized theft. Or exchange could be an economic exchange, right? So we want to exchange with one another to attain our goals. I can enter society and via conquest I can force and then I can take the means and the resources to achieve my end goals. Or I can enter society and decide to exchange. Exchange is voluntary, exchange is harmonious, and it is based on comparative advantage. That's where the comparative advantage comes in. What is comparative advantage? It's something that not only I have higher productivity, but relatively speaking, right, the extent, the intensity of my productivity is higher vis-a-vis other goods with respect to exchange with another human being, okay? So I'm going to talk, if you want to learn anything from your mainstream economics major, if you go to college for 4 years and you study major in economics, comparative advantage is the most important idea that you should focus on, okay? So, I would like to define comparative advantage. Comparative advantage refers to the ability of an individual to produce a good or a service at a lower opportunity cost than others, okay? So comparative advantage refers to the ability of an individual to produce a good or a service at a lower opportunity cost. It's bold, and I will explain what that means. So trade is based on differences in opportunity cost. The key idea here is that even if one entity is more efficient at producing multiple goods, specialization is still beneficial when considering opportunity cost. The idea is even if one person is more efficient at producing multiple goods, so Jack is more efficient at producing apples and oranges. So Jack is more efficient than me at producing apples and oranges. That means he is more productive. That means it takes him less time to produce apples and less time to produce oranges than me. So the question is, should Jack trade with me? We live in a village, next door neighbors, it's me and Jack in this village, okay? And he is more productive than me. It takes him less time to produce apples and less time to produce oranges. Should Jack trade with me? Yes. What happened? Yesterday you said no. I changed my whole presentation today. This whole hour is dedicated to you, okay? Because seriously, I mean, if you look, this is number 3 presentation. I mean, I'm supposed to lecture number 7, okay? Right? No, 8, right? So I changed my presentation. I'm dedicating this lecture for you. And the answer is yes, because trade is not based on differences in productivity. He's more productive than me. That means it takes him less time. He's more productive in the production of apples. He's more productive than me at producing apples and oranges and bananas, right? More productive. But trade is not based on differences in productivity. Trade is based, or comparative advantage is based on differences in opportunity cost. Okay? So, I'm going to move on and give you an example, in detailed example. We're going to spend the last 40, 50 minutes with the example. Opportunity cost is the cost. So what is opportunity cost? The definition of opportunity cost is what you give up to get something. Okay? So opportunity cost is what I'm giving up to get something. Okay? So what am I giving up to get an apple? Forget the money. The money is an intermediary, right? If I'm giving up $10, but what I could have gotten, how many oranges I could get with that money. So in reality, when you're buying something, you're not giving up money, but you're giving up what that money could purchase, right? So opportunity cost is when I want to acquire a unit of an apple, how many units of a banana I am letting go, I'm foregoing. So opportunity cost is the cost of foregoing the next best alternative when making a decision. Comparative advantage takes this concept and applies it to production and trade. So the idea of comparative advantage, which is at the base of exchange and trade, is determined by differences in opportunity cost, not NOT, underline bold, not productivity. Okay? So, what determines productivity? That's that at the individual level, the knowledge component. So now let's say I want to apply it. Jack doesn't understand economics. I'm convincing Jack that, you know what, we're neighbors. You're better than me at producing apples and oranges and bananas. You're more efficient, you're more productive. But please, let's specialize. You need me, I need you. We'll be better. Both of us will be better off if we specialize. So I'm in the classroom today, dedicating this hour to Jack, convincing him so we can trade with one another. Because when we start trading, we become friends. Otherwise, if Jack doesn't need me, he says, I don't want to trade with you. What am I thinking? Violence, conflict, conquest. I'm thinking like, I'm going to go take over his house. We're not friends anymore. He doesn't need me. He has the same feelings towards me. Right? He has the same feelings towards me. I don't need you. What does it mean? If you don't need someone, then you can just like let go of that person. Right? So directly it leads to not an exchange market, but a violent, right? A coercive market. I want to dominate him now. And the way to dominate him, is leads to violence. So I want to explain to Jack that we can be friends rather than be enemies. Okay? So at the individual, so now, how do I know in which good? So comparative advantage. So I have to decide. It's like think about two goods. So how am I going to discover in which good I have a comparative advantage? Right? I mean, apples and oranges. How do I know which one I'm better at? Okay? So that means so what determines comparative advantage? So what determines comparative advantage is that at the individual level, the knowledge component, where individuals possess specific knowledge based on their abilities, may be the determining factor of comparative advantage. So how do I find out? Where I know that I realize we can have a conversation, and I think maybe my land is more suitable for the production of, tropical foods. Your land is more suitable for the production of grapes. I have the know-how. I'm stronger, bigger, taller. I can, so we can figure out what I'm good at, okay, and what you're good at. So the components, right, the knowledge-based, specific knowledge I have, secret recipes. I have the machinery, I have the roast, I have the climate for producing cigars. You can't produce cigars in California. You don't have the humidity, the temperature, but Cuba has. So I accumulate all the knowledge that I have and pit it against your knowledge to find out which one I'm better at, okay? Obviously that will be discovered in a market exchange place. So at the macro country level, it could be possible that factor abundance, some countries, the US produces capital intensive goods because we have more capital in the US. So we produce nanotechnology, robotics, fiber optics, solar energy, because it requires capital, right? Vis-a-vis Mexico, for example, Mexico is relatively more abundant in labor. So Mexico should specialize in the production of apples and oranges, goods and services that require more labor, right? So at the country level, what are we abundant in which factor of production determines comparative advantage or lower opportunity cost? At the individual level is our know-how, right? Do I have the right recipe? So, I would like to introduce the concept again, reiterate the absolute and comparative advantage. So when I earlier said that Jack is more productive than me at producing apples, it takes him less time, less effort. Jack is more productive than at producing bananas and oranges. It takes him less time, less effort, right? More productive. That means he has absolute advantage, okay? That's the definition of absolute advantage. But as I said, trade is not based on differences in productivity. Trade is not based on differences in absolute advantage. Trade is based on differences in comparative advantage. Okay? So absolute advantage when an individual can produce one or more good than another with the same resources. So he has 1 hour, I have 1 hour. In 1 hour he produces more apples. If he dedicates the hour to producing bananas, he can produce more than me. If he dedicates the hour to producing cookies, he will produce more than me. So for the same resources, right, he can produce more. That's absolute advantage. What is comparative advantage? Comparative advantage when an individual has a lower opportunity cost in producing a good or a service, right? So comparative advantage is how much is it costing him to produce bananas, how many oranges he has to let go, okay? Versus how many oranges I have to let go. So that's the opportunity cost for producing a good, not productivity. So the beauty of comparative advantage is that it allows for specialization and trade, creating gains when one party has an absolute advantage in producing multiple goods. So if in a two individuals world, even if you have absolute advantage in two goods, trade and specialization based on differences in comparative advantage leads to gains. So this is an example, okay? So comparative advantage. Let's consider two individuals. We have Omar and we have Amir, okay? Producing two goods, falafels and za'atar. You know what za'atar is?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what za'atar is? What is it?
Like a spice mix, right?
Spice mix. It's a mix of thyme and
I don't know.
sesame seeds. And sometimes they add nuts to it, or they like some berries and things like that. So there's many ways you can make the za'atar, but the traditional way is just some thyme with some sesame seeds, and you add oil to it, right? And you can make sandwiches, you can make the za'atar, bread, za'atar bread. And everyone knows what falafel is?
Mm-hmm.
Yes? Jack?
Yeah.
Everyone knows how is falafel made? What are the ingredients to make falafels? Kunmi. What's in the falafel? Chickpeas and tahini paste, which is the, sorry, not tahini paste, but sesame seeds, chickpeas, onions, garlic, right? These are the main ingredients. Lemon, obviously. So, falafels. So, now we have two individuals, okay, Omar and Amir. This is the units per hour. So, in 1 hour, how many falafels can Omar make? Narik, in 1 hour, units per hour. In 1 hour, Omar can make two falafels. In 1 hour, Omar can make 8 units of za'atar. Amir, in 1 hour per hour, he can make 6 falafels. In 1 hour, Amir can make 12 units of za'atar. So who's more productive, Jack? In 1 hour, 2 versus 6, who's more productive? Amir is more productive, right? He's making 6 versus 2. Who's more productive at making za'atars? Amir. So Amir is more productive at producing both goods. Should Amir trade with Omar? Yes. Because trade is not based on differences in productivity. Trade is based on differences in opportunity cost. It's something else. Okay? So Amir has, we say, absolute advantage. Amir is more productive at making both goods in the production of both falafels and za'atar. Should Amir trade with Omar? Karen?
Yes.
Yes, and we're going to find out why. So, yes, the answer is yes. Because trade is not based on productivity, but on opportunity cost. So how do I calculate opportunity cost? So this is the same. Falafel, Omar in 1 hour 2 units, in 1 hour 8 units, Amir in 1 hour 6 units, right? So this is the previous diagram that we have over here. Okay? Now, how do I calculate the opportunity cost? Well, what is the definition of opportunity cost? What I give up to get something. So, Omar, to produce 2 falafels, right? So you have 1 hour, right? So let me go back quickly. So this is, assume there is only 1 working hour. So you have 1 hour a day to dedicate for the production of za'atar or falafel. The rest, you want to rest. So Omar, to produce 2 falafels, when Omar is dedicating that 1 hour to production of falafel, is producing 2. That means when he's producing 2, how many units of za'atar is he producing? 0. If you have 1 hour, in 1 hour you produce 2. That means if you spend 1 hour on falafel, you're letting go, you're foregoing how many units of za'atars? 8. Right? Because if this is 2, this is 0. Right? If this is 8, this is 0. Because you can't be, you have 1 hour. Okay? So to produce 2 units of falafels, you're letting go 8 units of za'atar. To let go of 1 falafel, how many units you're losing? So the opportunity cost is what you got to getting. So to produce 1 unit of falafel, you're giving up 4 za'atars. To produce 2, you're giving up 8. To produce 1, you're giving up half of it, 4. Okay? So it's 8 over 2, 4. Now, let's reverse the role. If you want to produce, you have 1 hour, you want to produce 8 units of za'atar. How many units of falafel are you giving up? 2. If you want to produce 1 za'atar, you're giving up 2 over 8, 1/4 unit of falafel. So the opportunity cost for Omar for 1 falafel is 4 za'atar you have to give up. For Omar to produce 1 unit of za'atar, you're giving up 1/4 unit of falafel. Let's look at Amir. So Amir, if he spends 1 hour producing falafel, he's going to be over here. And if he spends 1 hour, he's going to have 6 falafel and 0 za'atar. If he spends 1 hour on producing za'atar, he gets 12 units and 0 falafels. So, now what is the opportunity cost for Amir to produce falafels? If he's producing 6, he's giving up 12 if he wants to be here. Well, for 1 unit, it's 12 over 6, which is 2. So to produce 6 falafel, you'll give up 12. To produce 1, you're giving up 2. How about za'atar? If Amir is producing 12, he's giving up, that means 6. If he wants to produce 1, then he's going to give up half a falafel, 6 over 12. Okay? So that's the opportunity cost of za'atar and falafel for Omar and Amir. Now let's look at this table over here. In which good Omar has comparative advantage? So comparative advantage is the individual who has the lowest opportunity cost, right? What am I giving up to get that 1 unit? So let's compare the falafels. Omar, to produce 1 falafel, how much is it costing you? What's the cost of producing 1 falafel? You're giving up 4 units of za'atar. Amir, to produce 1 falafel, is giving up 2 units. Who has the lowest opportunity cost? Whose cost is lower? Omar or Amir? Amir is giving up less. So the opportunity cost for Amir to produce a unit of falafel is less than the opportunity cost of Omar to produce 1 unit of falafel. So therefore we can conclude that Amir has what? Comparative advantage in falafels. And how do I know that Omar has comparative advantage in za'atar? Let's see. To produce 1 unit of za'atar, Omar is giving up 1/4 unit of falafel. To produce 1 unit of za'atar, Amir is giving up half a falafel. Who has the lowest cost? Omar. Who has the highest cost? Amir. It's too costly for Amir. So comparative advantage, I have the lowest opportunity cost. So therefore we can conclude that Omar has a comparative advantage in za'atar. So now we want Jack, right, or Amir having comparative absolute advantage in both, now suddenly we see that there is a difference when we look at opportunity costs. Suddenly, Amir has comparative advantage in falafel and Omar in za'atar. Whereas initially, with respect to absolute advantage, Amir had the absolute advantage in the production of both goods. But trade is not based on differences in productivity or absolute advantage. Trade is based on differences in opportunity costs. Now, once we've established that who has comparative advantage in what, then they have to do what? What's the next step? I realized I'm better than you at producing a good or a service, right? Given the know-how, given the technology that I have, given if at the country level, the natural resources, climate, etc. Once we identified that, then we have to do what? Specialize. And then trade. Okay? Specialize and then trade. So if you remember the first pillar, I talked about the naked ape, right? Who enters society, and the naked ape, he wants to achieve certain goals. But before achieving his goals, he has to do what? It's too difficult, it's too far away, too deep. My goal is to get there, but there is no bridge. So I enter society, right? And the reason I enter society is that I benefit myself. I acquire the tools, the money, the necessary resources, so I can get to my goal, right? So this is when the naked ape is entering marketplace and discovering the idea of comparative advantage and convincing people like Jack, please, even though you have more productive at producing both goods, there is something called opportunity cost differences, disparities, and let's trade, and trust me, Jack, will be both better off, okay? So that's what we're doing over here. So now trade occurs, right? So the next step is to do what? Once I discover this, the next step is to specialize. Let's specialize. Specialization. So before I go to specialization, I need to take a look at the autarkic equilibrium, right? Let's assume for a moment that in autarky, in isolation, they split the day equally. Because human beings, we like a variety. We like some veggies, we like some steaks, we like apples, we like oranges, we like security, we like healthcare, we want some transportation, we want education. We like to have a little bit of both. So let's assume in isolation, Omar and Amir split the day into the one working hour into half. So in 1 hour, Omar was able to produce 2 falafels. Now he's going to split. He's going to spend half an hour producing falafel. How many units of falafel can he produce? 1. Half an hour producing za'atar? 4. Half an hour Amir is going to dedicate to falafel. That means he can produce 3. Half an hour dedicated to produce za'atar, right? Half the time, it's 6. So that's what I have over here. Omar is producing 1 falafel and 4 za'atars, and Amir is producing 3 falafels and 6 za'atars, right? So this is the day split. Half an hour dedicated for the production of each good. Obviously, right? 2, 6, 8, 12. Over here I have the halves. Instead of 2, I have 1. Instead of 6, I have 3. Instead of 8, I have 4 and 6. So, the total production in autarky, in isolation, you just add it up, right? The total falafel that's in the market, in society, is 4 units, and the total za'atar, right? So 1 and 3 is 4, and the total za'atar in the market, right? 4 and 6 is 10. That's how much za'atar and falafels we have. Now specialization, yes?
Question from Zoom. From
Okay.
So in the case of Omar, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah. My question is, in the case of Omar and Amir, am I correct in assuming the trade will not occur if Amir has no demand/desire whatsoever for falafel? And if so, what happens to the respective individuals' specializations in production?
So, sorry, is the question you said maybe one of them doesn't like the good or the service?
Yeah, basically, if Amir doesn't want any falafel, like he has the ability to produce falafel,
Yeah.
And maybe he has a comparative advantage in the production of falafel, but he doesn't have any desire for it.
Yeah, but like I said, in a world, I just mentioned that in the real world, I mean, this is a hypothetical scenario. There is two individuals and one factor of production, which is time, right? I mean, hour. And there's only two goods. But in the real world, there's millions and billions of people on planet Earth. There are millions and billions of people, of goods and services that we desire. And there are millions of different varieties of resources, not just time, but capital, labor, technology, entrepreneurship, land, different varieties of land, skilled labor, unskilled labor. So what I have over here is a very simplified version. You need mathematics, advanced calculus to really have an environment when there is like 100 goods and services, thousands of them, or thousands of factors of productions, and millions of individuals. So I'm making things simple because I don't want mathematical, I don't want to make this lecture mathematical. So I'm bringing it down to a very, a 1, 2 people. But like I said, if you don't want, so this, I made some assumptions, I simplified the world because it's easier to understand. But if you don't want falafel or za'atar, that means you're really going into isolation. And you're really moving towards an autarky. There's millions of goods, you don't want anything, you want only one good. So that you're moving yourself into autarkic situation where life would be miserable, brutish, short-lived, unsustainable, unstable, right? So you're kind of taking yourself out of the marketplace. Human beings, as I say in this classroom, that we prefer the alternative, which is integrating ourselves into the market economy. And that's why the underlying assumption that I said that human beings, we like a little bit of healthcare, we like some security, we like some food, we like some leisure, we like education, movies, going to the basketball. So that's the assumption I'm making. But yes, you could exist. If you don't like falafels and there's only za'atar, you can live alone on a mountain and have za'atar. That means we're not looking at the exchange economy. So by definition, we're investigating the exchange economy where the naked ape has entered the marketplace. Otherwise, they will be the naked apes living alone on a mountain, and that's another topic, I would say. So I think I made that clear in my assumptions that I made. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So now, specialization takes place. So Umar had comparative advantage in what? Right? So if you look at the previous diagram over here, Umar has comparative advantage in za'atar. So Umar is going to completely specialize in the production of za'atar. How many units can you produce? Well, if you go to the first table over here, if he completely spends 1 hour on za'atar, he can produce 8, right? So he's not splitting the day, he's waking up in the morning and he's saying, this 1 hour work time I have, I'm going to produce za'atar. So he's going to produce za'atar. Complete specialization. Now Amir, who's Jack, I think I'm going to change the names eventually, your name and my name. Now Jack over here, he's still suspicious. He doesn't believe my story. He thinks this is all a made-up comparative advantage. He doesn't understand. He doesn't want to think about it. He's not grasping the idea. He's still fearful. He's thinking this guy made up a story and he wants to come take over my za'atar and falafel, right? So that's why out of fear he does what? Incompletely specializes. He doesn't want to put his trust on me 100%. Okay? He doesn't know the idea, the meaning of comparative advantage. So he says, you know what? I'm not going to completely specialize. I'm going to dedicate my day, even though the professor explained to me that I have comparative lower opportunity cost and comparative advantage in falafel. So I'm not going to split the day equally. I'm going to spend 3/4 of the hours, right, 45 minutes into the production of falafels, but I'm going to still spend 15 minutes producing za'atar. Okay, so because he doesn't trust me. Now that's what he does. He does incomplete specialization. He produces 4.5 units of falafel. That means he's spending how many minutes? 45 minutes producing falafel, right? So 45 minutes or times 6 over 60. Okay. So how do I get the 4.5 falafels? It's easy, right? So this is Amir. In 1 hour, it produces how many units of falafel? How many units of falafel in 1 hour? 6 units. In 45 minutes. So in 60 minutes, it's producing 6. In 45 minutes, it's producing 4.5, okay? In 45 minutes, it's producing 4.5. In 60 minutes, it's producing 6. If you do the math, right? 45 minutes times 6 divided by 60, that is 4.5. Now he's left with how many minutes? 15 minutes he has left. He dedicates the next 15 minutes producing za'atar. If in 1 hour he was producing 12, in 15 he's producing, in 15 he's producing 3. In 1 hour he's producing 12. In 15, which is 1/4 of 1 hour, so 12 divided by 4 is equal to 3. He's producing 3 units of za'atar. Questions? Yeah? Okay, so now let's look at the total falafel. So now there is specialization, complete and the incomplete. But nevertheless, there is specialization. So what's the total falafel? Omar produced 0, Amir produced 4.5, I produced 0, Jack produced 4, total is 4.5. Za'atar, I produced completely specialized 8. Amir incompletely specialized with the 15 minutes left, he produces some za'atar just to be safe. He needs both, right? He needs medication and he needs food, okay? So he produces 3, so 3 plus 8 is equal to 11. Now what happened to our little village? Do we have more falafels and more za'atars? Yes, if you go back over here, what was in autarky? I added up, right? You produce half hour. I have 4 falafels and 10 units of za'atar. And then after specialization, I have, instead of 4, I have 4.5. Suddenly we have more units of za'atar. In autarky, total za'atar was 10. Now suddenly we have 11 units. So miraculously, as if technology, right? I mean, as if like productivity went up, miraculously we have more of both goods. That's the beauty. That's the foundation of society. If we don't understand this, we should be at each other's throat. I should literally come over and then subdue you and then, take over your computer and your shoes and your laptops. If you don't understand this. So Jack's world yesterday was one of violence. Okay, that's the environment that Jack was living in, conquest, violence. Hopefully now he understands that we can benefit, even though he's better at producing all the goods and the services, there are still differences in comparative advantage, and we can be better off. It's this 0.5 and this 1 unit that I call market society. This is what brings us to the classroom today. If this number wasn't the same, then we don't need to be in the classroom. Yes?
If both Omar and Amir did complete specialization,
Yeah.
it would be a lot more philosophical, right? It'd be 6 philosophical, but it would be
Less.
8 za'atar.
Mm-hmm.
So is this kind of saying that complete specialization is better?
Yeah, so all I have to show you, there is some level of specialization that benefits both of us. Maybe this guy incompletely specializes too. Maybe they both completely specialize. Maybe they, all I have to show, I'm not even interested in this number yet. Because total, who cares about the total? I'm interested in the exchange that's going to happen, that's going to put us over here individually. I want to show you that this guy has more falafel, more, is this cars? What's going on? How come nobody said this is, did you change it, Ethan? No? Oh yeah. So you know why this happened, Jack? There's cars instead of za'atar? Because after lecture yesterday, I went home and I did this for you. Okay? This whole thing, it's dedicated to this lecture.
I understand it a lot better.
Yeah, okay, good. So all I want to show you that individually they're better off. So my point is, as long as I show that there is an after specialization, there is an equilibrium, that we both have more of both goods, that then human beings will discover whether it should be complete specialization, incomplete specialization, right? What's the right amount of specialization, right? So I'm not going to say complete specialization is better. There are circumstances given our technology that certain incomplete specialization is better. So yeah, it depends on the environment and on the factors of production and the resources that we have, and that may change which one gives us the highest level. But as human beings, we will, via trial error, we can discover the right amount of specialization. And in the real world, obviously, I don't blame Jack, right? We don't completely specialize. I don't want to completely be dependent on food or water coming from Canada, right? What happens if there's a war? Marx Carson was talking about, we wage a war, and then suddenly they cut off our supplies. So strategically, you don't want to be completely dependent. You don't want to make yourself vulnerable. So, so Jack is incompletely specializing. So in the real world, there is no such thing as complete specialization, okay? But it could happen, okay? So all I have to show over here is there's some level of specialization, incomplete or complete, right? Why didn't this guy go all the way to 5 falafels? Why not 4.25, right? So that is determined by other factors in the marketplace. But all I'm showing over here is that there is more of both. Now, Omar has 0 falafel, Za'atar 8 Za'atar, Amir has 4.5 units of falafel and 3 units of Za'atar. That's their post-trade, right? Now, let's say they trade. Now, Omar wants to trade, he wants some Za'atar too, right? And maybe Amir wants more Za'atar than falafel, right? So, obviously, there is trade that's going to go on. So let's say Omar gives 3.7 Za'atar. Can Omar give 3.75 Za'atar? Can he give away? Yes, he has 8. He can give to Amir 3.5. And he's going to get in return 1.25 falafel. How many units of falafel Amir has? 4.5. Can he give 1.25? Yes, they're exchanging, right? Now the exchange ratio is determined by our preferences, prices, right, etc. Now with Omar, they exchange. So now Omar is receiving 1.25 falafel, so that's 1.25. He's giving 3.75. 8 minus 3.75 is 4.25. Amir is receiving what? 3.75, right? So Amir is receiving 3.75 units of falafel, right? So Omar trades 3.5 for 1 falafel with Amir. So Amir is giving away 1.25 falafel, right? So Amir had 4.5. When you give away 1.25 is 3.25. And he has 3 Za'atars, and he's receiving from Omar 3.75 for a total of 6.75, okay? So if you add the numbers, now this is how much they're left to consume. So now let's go back. So he's producing his 3, Amir, plus he's getting 3.75. So 3 that is receiving from Omar, plus the 3.75 is receiving from Omar, plus the 3 because of incomplete specialization, that's 6.75. So now compared to the initial autarkic equilibrium, so after trade he has 1.25, 4.25, 3.25, 6.75. In autarky, how many units of falafel did Omar have? He had 1, right? Autarky is the previous diagram over here, right? Here. Before trade, autarky, he's splitting the day into 2 halves. He has 1, 4 Za'atar, 3 falafels and 6 Za'atars. And now, post-trade, right? You have 1.25, 4.25, 3.25, 6.75, and this is the autarkic equilibrium. Now you take the difference, 1.25 minus 1 is 0.25, Za'atar 4.25 minus 4, 0.25, Amir has 3.25, In autarky had 3, 0.25. Amir had 6.75 units of za'atar post-trade consumption. In autarky had 6, so 0.75. Now I'm showing that the gains from trade, okay? So now I'm taking all of this, I'm explaining to Jack over here, that look, before trade, this was our consumption. After trade, this is our consumption. And then we both gain, okay? I gain 0.25 and 0. Extra additional za'atar. You gain 0.25, actually you gain more za'atar even. You're even better off because your gain is 0.75, whereas my gain is 0.25, okay? Now, this is an example. Obviously, technology changes. We have incomplete specialization. The trade, I'm making an assumption over here, right? The Omar trades 3.75 for 125. This depends on our subjective preferences. This could be 3.65, this could be 1.35, right? But as long as I show a scenario where specialization and trade based on differences in comparative advantage leads to a gain for both of us, then my job is done convincing you that even though I'm more productive than you at producing apples and oranges, still we both benefit from specialization and trade. Questions? So, those of you, I think Karen is better with diagrams, right? You said something about diagrams, you understand better?
No.
Oh, the opposite? Oh, okay, yeah. So that was more like qualitative.
Right.
Now I'm going to use diagrams, but I have a few more minutes. You can go over it if you have questions, we can talk about it, right? I would like to introduce a term called production possibility frontier, or PPF. What does the PPF mean? It's a diagram that shows the maximum amount of apples and oranges and bananas could an individual produce given the resources that we have, okay? So a PPF is a curve that illustrates the maximum combination of outputs. Now, this is Omar. So this is the production possibility frontier. How many units of falafel could Omar produce? Maximum. If you go to the diagram, right? Jack, how many units of falafels could Omar produce?
2.
2. Maximum. If he produces 0 za'atar, that means the maximum is 2. And if he produces 0 units of falafel, this is the first table I gave you, right? The matrix, the first one. If he produces 0 falafel, how many za'atars can he produce?
8.
8, right? So this is the max. Now he can choose to be, if he divides the day into, split the day into 2 halves, he could be producing 1 unit of falafel and 4 units of za'atar. That's the autarkic equilibrium when you split the hour into 2. Okay? Same thing applies to Amir. What was the maximum that Amir could produce? If you dedicate 1 hour in the production of falafel, you produce 6. If you produce 0 falafel, then how many units of za'atar you could produce? 12. If you split the day into half hour and half hour, you will be in autarkic equilibrium, 3 and 6. Okay? Now, when we specialize, what happened to Omar? Omar did complete or incomplete specialization? Omar, complete specialization. So from here, he moved all the way down. He's producing how many falafels? 0, and producing 8 units. So this is specialization complete. Jack, Amir, the prince, he did incomplete specialization. He's still suspicious what's going on. So instead of producing 6 and 3, he started producing more falafels because he had comparative advantage in falafels. So he moved from here all the way over here. So he went from 3 to 4.5. That means his production of za'atar went from 6 to 3. So in specialization you are here, okay? And I'm over here under specialization, complete specialization, incomplete. You might want to add incomplete over here. Now when we trade, I was over here. When I traded, what did I get? How many units of za'atar did I get from you? 4.25, right? and when I traded with you, I got 1 point, right? So I gave away, I think 3.75 units of Za'atar. So I moved from here, I have like 4.25, and in return I got 1.25, right? If you look at the numbers for the exchange, 3.75 for 1.25, right? So if I'm giving away 3.75, I'm at 4.25, and in return I'm getting 1.25, that puts me over here, the red cross. That means I am able to consume outside my production possibility frontier. In some magical way, even though my production is on the PPF, productivity didn't change. I'm not better at producing. But because trade allows me to consume outside, so production is over here, but consumption is outside of my capability. That's the beauty of trade. Okay? Same thing with Amir. Amir was in autarky over here. Now he has more of both goods. Even though his production is on the PPF, your productivity is not going up. But just because we traded, as if we got better technologically, that's why we're able to produce outside the production possibility frontier. And when you're specializing, you're even getting better and better. That means this whole thing in a dynamic world is shifting outward. Okay, we don't even have that because that's a dynamic interpretation. Maybe in the future I can talk about that, put it in diagrams, right? But in this mainstream static environment is that we're able to consume outside of our production possibility frontier. That's the beauty of specialization and trade. Something magical happened. Gains from trade, I just want to close up, right? So we both benefit, otherwise there would be no trade. In Jack's world, we wouldn't exist today, we would have all killed one another, right? And that's what they did in continental Europe. This is a new idea, by the way. This idea is new, and Jack is not unique. If I raise it to a classroom where I'm exposed, students are exposed to economics for the first time, they don't know. I would say more than 50% they would say, I don't trade. If I pick up anyone on the street, I say, I'm better than them, you would say, okay, I don't have business with you. But the reality is we all have business with one another. Every day you're trading with millions and billions of people. Your computer, you traded your shoes, your backpack, right? So obviously that's not the case. But people don't realize it. So, but nevertheless, this idea was something, who invented the theory of comparative advantage? David Ricardo. You should get a picture of David Ricardo, put it in your room, okay? Because David Ricardo saved you, okay, from the tyrannical world that you're envisioning, that will be at each other's throat. And it's a true story. He was imprisoned. Imagine Jack puts me in prison because he doesn't believe the first time. Because David Ricardo was not able to explain clearly as I'm doing over here. Right? The parliament in England, they put him in prison. Okay, and then he came out of prison, he explained this again, and it took him a few times, and he used an example like this. It's a true story. And then finally they were convinced. So they said, oh, they opened up the border. Now, England and continental Europe, right? The idea is now the world became a more integrated, interdependent, right? This is at the foundation of civilization, at the foundation of economic society. Conclusion. Any questions? Okay, now everyone understands comparative advantage, productivity, opportunity cost, gains from trade, right? Yes?
Go ahead, Anirudh.
Anirudh, first of all, I want to tell you I miss you. I
miss being in LA too.
Are you?
Okay, this is another complication I wanted to add in, just a hypothetical scenario I came up with. Essentially, my question is, is there necessarily a risk that we take by going down the route of Jesus Christ? Sorry, is there a necessary risk that we take by going down the route of pure specialization? So, for instance, say, we take the example of Amir and Omar just because it's on hand and easy. Suppose, I don't know, Omar's country is invaded by, a giant levitating 50-foot long walrus mustache that just comes and swipes and destroys his purpose making Zalta. Like, it destroys his Zalta making factory, so basically no one has any more Zalta because Omar was the one who was making Zalta, and now everyone is like, Emir has the ability to make falafel, but he wasn't specializing in Zalta, so it's like, just falafel, no Zalta. Is there a way to, like, I'm guessing in the real world, obviously, there would be multiple actors that make Zalta, so it wouldn't be like a risk that we would be taking by saying, like, if we're Nation Emir and we're trading with Nation Omar, we wouldn't be taking a huge risk by exclusively getting our Zalta from Nation Omar. But is there like a necessary risk we take in pure specialization in order to consume like all the way over here outside our PPO group? And is there any way that, like, even with operating at a level of pure specialization, we can mitigate that risk? I know if we do like not pure specialization, if we do like partial specialization, we mitigate that risk because obviously we're producing a little bit of Zalta ourselves, but yeah, like operating on pure specialization, is there any way to mitigate that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, few ideas. Obviously, pure specialization is not realistic. It's not realistic, right? We don't. I mean, a country, because also I want to address the issue of the country versus the individual. I only mentioned like countries are exchanging based on factor abundance because that's what the mainstream is. But in reality, I don't like even mentioning countries. Is people are specializing, right? And there are millions of people producing za'atar in different parts of the world. Because Palestinians producing za'atar tastes different, Syrian za'atar is different, Lebanese za'atar is different, there's the Indian za'atar. So za'atar is producing by individuals. I don't want to say at the country level or the ethnicity or race, etc. But it's being produced by millions of people around the world, and there is a variety. So if one farm goes, there's a drought in one place, and then we lose the producers of za'atar, then there are other people who are producing za'atar in the world. So yeah, in the real world, this is again, the reason I'm saying there's only Omar and Amir and there are two goods, just to simplify the complexities of the diagram. I wouldn't be able to put it on the board in a diagram where I have 5 individuals or millions of people and millions of goods and services, right? I can't diagram it. So theoretically, you're right. It just things don't make sense. Not theoretically, the way it's being illustrated, because I'm not using math. But in the real world, think about this as being multi-dimensional diagrams. So I think you answered the question yourself. That in the real world, there's no such thing as an individual. That one entity is completely specializing. Because that entity is not a country, but it's an individual. So individuals completely specialize, but there are millions of people completely specialized. I'm an economist, that's it. Complete specialization, okay? And you're a finance guy, complete specialization. But there are millions of finance guys, there are millions of computer specialists, there are millions of economic lectures, right? So in the real world, don't look at country level, but individual level, there are many emirs, there's thousands of emirs. If one emir experiences a drought, there's thousands of other emirs are producing the za'atar and the falafel, etc.
Got it. So basically, the only way to mitigate that risk is if we have multiple producers of the same good.
Yeah, in the real world, that's what happens. Obviously, even at the country level, which I don't want to emphasize trade, at the country level, but even at the country level, there is no country in the world that specializes in one good. It's called strategic trade policy. Countries don't want to be dependent completely on other countries when it comes to necessities. No country in the world is dependent on their necessities, whether it's food or water or some other necessities on a trading partner, right? So that's the strategic status trade policy. It's called strategic trade policy. But at the individual level, forget about it. There's millions of emirs and millions of jacks and millions of Omars.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, we're gonna take a break, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes break, and then Matthew will come in. Okay? Anirudh, where are you? Oh, he's on the break already. Where is he?
I'm in Massachusetts right now.
Oh, okay. When are you gonna come visit us? When are you
I'm looking
visiting?
maybe either April or July, depending on
Okay.
budget constraints. Because I'm going to be traveling to Europe in like mid-June, and then I have to travel to Wisconsin to attend my brother's graduation. So it's like the travel costs are adding up. I want to come to I have a break from work in April for like spring breaks and trying to come around there. But
Okay.
it's like flying within California is like $38 for a flight, and over here is like over $100. So
Okay, we miss you. Well, everybody wants to see you in person.
Where in Massachusetts are you?
Acton, a small town called Acton. I can send you the location via.
Send us pictures.
Yeah, I'll send you guys some pictures.
Okay. Can you? I'm just asking technology. Can you put like his picture on the?
It's
So-
gonna be, yeah. It's just gonna be like reflected.
Oh, okay. We see you now. Hola. How was your Armenian?
Yes. Ne hiç gittim. Arada da hayal sormadım ben.
Oh wow.
Forfetiv Miki Chankedel and Yerevanum or Gumriu, but that's what for Gum. If you want to say Gum in Gumri, it's Gumriu, but
Yes.
I'm not really sure.
That's good. Nice. Awesome. Wow. Okay. Hopefully we'll see you in April. Okay. Okay.
Sounds good.
Bye. Everybody.
Cheers,
sees you.
guys.
Okay. Bye.
He
Okay.
speaks Kazakh also.
He speaks Kazakh too.
Yeah.
He's speaking so fluent in Armenian.
Yes,
Like the words that he used, right? Do you hear that, Marek?
At the MMA gym, he'd be talking like Russian and talk to the Chechen guys, and
It's like multilingual and he just catches up languages like that, I guess. Okay, let's take a break.